So it took me actual years to finish this workbench. It works, but there are a lot of mistakes. Let me show you what they are. So here's one of my workbench improvements. It is a plane stop. It's the BT&C plane stop that you can buy from Gramercy Tools. Really neat and handy. There's a lot more out there since I bought this one about like 2 years ago. I made it out of hickory. It's a very hard wood, so planing it did take me a bit. Once I figured out the sizing, it went pretty well. So my mortise was a little wonky, so between planing this down and chiseling out this mortise to be a little bit straighter, it did work out. What I should have done was incorporated the mortise into the workbench when I was building it, so that it already had a mortise just kind of built in by just cutting one of these 2x4 planks and then leaving a bit of a spacer. That would have made my life a lot easier rather than making the bench top and then trying to figure out how to chop out the mortise. I decided kind of late in the game that I wanted a plane stop, and the bench was already on legs and everything, so trying to flip it over to make sure that your mortise is straight was a little difficult, so I did all of my chopping straight down, and so it left a bit of a ragged edge in the bottom, and it's a little wonky and not super straight, but this works perfectly. It just required a lot of tweaking and sizing. One of the things I forgot to do was recess the actual stop into my block of wood so that it was super, super flush. So it actually leaves us some space here. It's not the worst problem to have in the world, but it is just aesthetically not super pleasing. So one of my bigger problems is I had dug into my workbench, as you can see by this very clear delineation, while I was using my workbench as a reference for chopping. What I should have done, and what I was starting to do, and then lost patience, mark off where the bench was, and then made a mark just a little higher, just to give myself a little bit of space for sawing errors. But nope, as I showed, popped it on, started sawing off, and now it's not super flush. I did do a little bit of planing just to get it a little bit more flush. So I have a few options for this bench. I can keep trying to fix this somehow, plane everything down to meet the height of this leg, or I can just use it as a vise. But here's the thing. I wanted a vise so I can grip things a lot easier. And it grips. It works. Am I going to be making dovetails on it? No. But I do have all the parts for a Moxon vise. So I guess that's my next project. My workbench also still has these holes from when I tried to add a face vise, but I'm right-handed and I put it in the wrong spot. This is the spot for a left-handed person. So this is the apron for my plane. You'll notice there's two different pieces of wood here. And that was because when I was originally making the face vise on the wrong side of the bench, I didn't actually have enough wood for a full apron. So what I had done was just added this piece, and then it was the length of the face vise, essentially, which was essentially a modified Moxon vise that I was using as a twin screw vise. So for my leg vise, I wanted to give it a bit more of a better surface area because I knew this piece of wood wasn't necessarily 90 degrees. It sticks out just a little bit, just like a couple degrees. So I tried to give it more of a surface area by adding a piece of wood to the leg. I was originally going to use a fresh piece of 2x6 and then cut it down, but then I found this scrap piece of 2x6 from a Moxon vise build and decided to use that. Forgot to account for the fact that because I was using it for a Moxon vise, I'd already tried planing it down. So it's actually about like a centimeter thinner than it normally would be. Whereas this piece of wood, I didn't plane down because I just grabbed it and slapped it on and just did some surface planing to it. But yeah, that didn't work out too well, did it? There's a bit of a gap here between this piece and this piece. Part of it is wood movement, because as this, I did give it time to dry, but it cupped a little bit more after I slapped her on. And then this one's been straight because I've actually had this piece longer than this piece. So this one's fine, but this one stuck out a little bit, and it's best of intentions. When I was making these half laps, not the best joinery for woodworking legs, but I, I've never really cut joinery before, and a half flap just seemed more in my skill level than cutting dovetails. But yeah, as you can tell, I had to add a little bit here just to fill up that space. It's glued on. My half flaps for the longer braces, not super flush, but better. My half flaps for the shorter braces, I don't know what I was thinking here, but definitely got my sizings wrong. This one's not even fully flushed either, but it's holding it up. And in fact, I later added some holes so I can store my bench dogs and hold fasts in a place that is easier for me to find and readily available. Another mistake on this bench, when I made the original leg mortises, I wasn't super great at chopping the mortises, to be honest, so I ended up filling up a bunch of chipped out holes or holes that are a little bit too wide only at the top with wood putty. It's stuck around pretty well. And I mean, it works. The legs are on there. I made a workbench. It works. It's not perfect. Definitely lessons for next time, but it works. And really, with the nice part about woodworking is you can make a ton of mistakes, but you're still going to walk away with something functional, either because you know how to fix it or you can live with the mistakes. And for me, there's a reason it took me a really long time to put a singular vise on this workbench. It's because I kept overthinking it and wanting it to be perfect. And the thing is, very little in life is going to end up perfect. You're going to make a mistake somewhere. So, um, learning to live with the mistake, I'm not going to lie, when I realized what I had done on the vise, I did lose my mind. It it very much it very much did not feel like a mistake I could recover from, but it is recoverable. I have a working vise. It the way I wanted it to be? Absolutely not. But does it clamp? Yeah. Does it clamp perfectly? Probably not. But there's workarounds for everything. And to be honest, it's not like I do a ton of woodworking to begin with. This is a hobby. I just think it's really fun. Um, and the channel is all about making mistakes and how to recover from them. And there's a reason. It's because I really do not know what I'm doing. So yeah, like, follow, subscribe.